Hey there, everybody. This is Brent Hoodenpyle. Welcome to another episode of Persuading for Profits. Today, I have Mr. Jim Klauck with me on the podcast. Jim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm living the dream, Brent. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's great to have you on. Jim hosts the Check a Pro radio show. We connected. Actually, Jim saw, I guess, maybe a previous episode that we had boosted online and talking about direct response radio. And we are both a fan of that. And so I thought I'd get him on here. I appreciate him taking the time out of his day to come on and talk about that with us. Jim, how are you doing today? And where are you? Where are you coming to us from?
I'm coming to you from my studio outside of Houston, Texas.
Very cool. Well, Jim, I know I've been on your website. We've talked a couple of times before. I know you have quite a background in radio. Can you kind of, this is sponsored by Radio Update. It's all radio people here. So can you fill us in a little bit on your background and tell us when your love for radio started?
My love for radio started while in college. 1984, my freshman year, I joined the college radio station, held many positions. I was a DJ. It was a top 40 radio station on campus.
Nice.
I was the sales manager at one point, the business manager, and ultimately the general manager of the station. Had 70 students under me I was responsible for, and It's very hard to manage 70 volunteer students,
right?
But I did. And actually, my position was a paid position. The university that I went to, the University of Hartford, paid a stipend to management. So it was really like working at a commercial radio station, and that was coming up on 41 years ago. In September,
oh my goodness.
It'll be 41. It was 1984 when I had started it. So I've been doing radio since then, and right now what I really love to do is get the phone to ring for my clients through direct response radio. I call it the best kept secret in advertising today, direct response radio, basically an infomercial, right? You give out a lot of information, then you give out the phone number and you say there's only so many available and there's only, so many callers that can call in a short time frame. And it's literally an infomercial, sounds like a radio show, and the phone rings not with leads, but with appointments.
Oh, that's a huge distinction there. Now, let me ask you this. So after college, you pursued a career in broadcasting and radio. Now, were you always, because I kind of want to figure out, I kind of want to see your progression here into this. Were you always behind the mic at some point on the air, or did you split time between being in the front office and behind the mic, and how did that work?
Well, I always wanted to own my own radio station, or I thought I did, and I was finally able to be on a lot of radio stations without having to own them. But to answer your question, mostly on air. That's mostly what I've done. And most of it has been outside of working as an employee of a radio station. It's been more of my own business where I have purchased time, or my clients have purchased time as well, on local radio stations coast to coast where we can take this messaging and put it on those radio stations. And today, it's easier than ever to do that because we can record on high fidelity instruments, like a Riverside or even a Zoom, right. And we can use AI to clean up the audio. So I've got clients all over North America, and radio stations are just loving this type of programming, whether it's mine, the Check a Pro radio show, or any of them, because radio stations today do not have the talent in-house that they used to. As you know, Brent, stations have had to adjust. They haven't gone out of business, but the back end of, or the back office of a radio station does not look the same as it did 20, 30 years ago. It's generally a ghost town. Most programming comes into the station versus originating there.
Yeah, no, I've heard DJs and whatever on, XM radio. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's true most places now. record, 6 hours worth of programming, record introductions, the whole thing in about 20 minutes. Send it all in and you're done. A lot different than, you're there, you're answering the phone, you're taking the request line, you're doing all the things back in the day. How did you, what was your first experience with direct response radio? Did that happen kind of after you'd gone out on your own, doing your own thing, or how did you slide into this business model here?
Interesting you asked that question, because I kind of fell into it like most of us fall into things. I was using long form radio to promote my business for the most part, not other businesses. And then I decided to sell some spot time within my radio show to help offset my radio show, which was to promote my main business. And then I got some ideas. I'm like, well, wait a second. This radio thing, the way I'm doing it in this long format, if I tweak it just a little bit, I can probably get the phone to ring for my clients. Most of my clients are in home service. They're home service contractors. And so it was years ago that I started experimenting with it to see what kind of products or services this could work for, what type of personality I would have on the other side of the desk as I interview. In other words, can I interview the owner of a company, or do I have to have a voice actor do that? And I've done both. And I came up with this formula that we use at CheckAPro to get the phone to ring. So I kind of fell into it, and since then I've been refining it. And generally, Brent, I find it's better to have a product to pitch than a service. Service can be kind of hard to pin down. But as you can imagine, with a water softener or attic insulation or solar attic fans, I sold millions of dollars worth of solar attic fans. There's a specific price point for that. So you can literally quote it over the radio. And then the homeowner self-qualifies themselves and says, oh, I can afford the solar attic fan. I can afford insulation. I can afford a water softener because I know what it costs. So Brent, it's kind of like watching an infomercial for the blender or the exercise equipment. When the consumer calls that 800 number to order the blender, they know what it costs. They know the warranty. They know how many speeds it has. They know what it can blend and juice and so forth. And the only question they have is, how soon can you get it to me? Here's my credit card.
Yeah, that's great. And so when you say CheckAPro, I mean, so I guess that's a good question, because I was curious about that. It's like, do you have many service? I mean, do you have HVAC guys? Do you have plumbers? Do you have roofers? Or is that seems like it would be really hard, because part of direct response radio, right, is that you have to have an offer, something you call in for this, you're going to get these exact things. And it's seems like it would be a little bit tougher, right, when a lot of those businesses are kind of like, hey, the roof's leaking, I need somebody now. Is there a way that those guys can work with your radio show, or what has your experience been with that?
So it's easier with a product like a water heater, water softener, insulation, solar attic fan. However, we've had great success with garage door companies, not with the garage door itself as a product, but the service part. As far as, hey, call now to get your garage door inspected for $39.95. Call now to get a tune-up on your air conditioning system. $49.95, but only 10 of my listeners will get it today. What that does is it opens up the door to get that HVAC company into the house, see if there's a bigger problem, possibly sell them something else. And if nothing else, Brent, they now have a new customer that knows, likes, and trusts them, because radio brings all of that. Radio brings a tremendous amount of trust. And now you're in their house. You have all their information. They have yours. So when they do need a new $25,000 air conditioning system, who are they going to call? You, if you're running a good company and you're doing it right. So it's that process of laying the groundwork. I will tell you this, though. I do have some HVAC companies that also sell water softeners. So what I'll tell them is, why don't we do this? Why don't we start on the radio with offering a free water test? Let's pitch the water softener, and you can sell them the water softener, and then you can also do their HVAC later.
And what kind of feedback have you been getting for that? How is, I mean,
Works well.
For what you do, the great thing about it is, for the most part, like you said, everybody's pre-sold. That's kind of one of those things where now you are kind of relying on the client to have some sales chops on their end once they get in the house to get things better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So calls, when the people call in, are they calling into your your switchboard, or are they calling into the company directly, or how does this work?
I have thought about having our own call center, which that's a whole nother business model. But the reason why I considered it, which we haven't done, is because a lot of home service companies don't answer their phones when they should or how they should. Here's what we do. We use tracking phone numbers that we assign with a local area code. So we don't do 800 numbers. So everything is local. So for instance, in Houston, the main area code is 281. In New York City, it would be 212. And so we use those area codes. It's our tracking number that we transfer seamlessly to the contractor's tracking number or their main line. So we can see who called, Mary Smith, at this phone number at this time, and we can hear the actual call. So part of our job at Check-A-Pro is to listen to the calls to see if the messaging matches up with the expectation of the listener. Because if the listener is asking questions that we should have answered on the radio, then we need to redo that radio program to answer those questions. So the number of callers goes up and the actual appointments go up on that phone call.
Yeah, that's great. And I think what a cool business model, because, I think I've heard we talked before, and you were saying you can tell when the phone rings during that program. So you can line that up with what was just said. I mean, so if you have like a plumber in one part of the country, you have a plumber in even just the other part of the state or whatever, it seems like you could always kind of be testing different message hot points, and you kind of have your own test. Hey, this has worked. Maybe let's try this one here, and then you know what? Hey, next time we do it, let's do this one for you guys because this was working really good. You know what I'm saying? It seems like you can always be constantly testing and say, you know what? Let's do this now because this worked for us over here in this area, and now we can apply it to yours. Is that something where when people come on, when people work out a contract with you or work out an arrangement with you, are they doing weekly programs? Do y'all record a new program every month? Air conditioning people, there's shoulder seasons. Maybe they're not as busy during that time. How is your arrangement with all the contractors?
Almost everyone is unique, but in general, here's what we do. We record a couple of shows up front, and we will repeat that show on the radio station or stations that we're airing in that market. So let's say it's Cleveland, Ohio, and it's an HVAC company. We start to air that show, let's say on June 1st. We start to monitor the calls. We see what we may be able to tweak or have to tweak. We'll also record a second show right after the first one. So now we have 8 segments. Each hour show has 4 segments with breaks in between. We can take segment 1 from show 1 and make it segment 3 from show 2.
Oh,
so
nice.
You can see how we can actually vary it. But I will tell you this, from years and years of experience, Brent, no one ever complains that we run the same show. So we could run it for months, which we have for some clients. And sometimes it's better to, because you're repeating the same message over and over again. Not everyone has heard the whole show. Often people will tune out every 7 to 8 minutes anyway. So they're not listening to the whole show. They're driving around and they have to get out to go shopping or to go to church. And when they get back in the car, the show may not be on. But the next week, maybe they catch it later and hear the rest of it. And it is infotainment. It's informational and entertaining. It has to be. And it's like watching an infomercial. If you've watched an infomercial on television before for a Peloton, for other exercise equipment, for, a blender, a pocket fisherman, whatever has been over the decades, you may watch that 3-4 times because it's interesting to you. It's entertaining. So when we talk about HVAC, we're talking about how often should I replace my air filters? Should I install a new smart thermostat? So it's not just a pitch. We're educating, it's information, it's nutritious, and at the same time we're saying, well, now you should call to get this offer. Then we go into more education. Then we say, now it's time to call, and there's only 2 left, you better call now.
Yeah, that is so great. The ability to mix and match the segments like that. I guess I never thought of that. That's really clever. So when you have a client, if your client says, get the best results you can for me, I'm in Cleveland. Do you try to book on multiple stations in Cleveland? Do you try to own one station? What is your broadcast and saturation strategy for a client in a market?
That's a great question, and there's no single answer, so let me go through this. We like to primarily place the radio show on conservative talk radio. That's usually AM and sometimes some FM stations. Mm-hmm. We want to go with the best conservative talk radio station in a Cleveland that is the best value that the client can afford. So for instance, in some markets, we'll take Houston. There's a radio station in Houston that costs almost $3,000 an hour. There's another radio station that costs $150 an hour. Both conservative talk. One's a 50,000 watt station, and the other one's like a 3,000 watt station. And there's a huge difference, as you know, Brent, between those two types of stations. One's a clear channel station that they don't have to power down at night. The 50,000 watt station is like a bulldozer. You get out of the way for it. So other stations on that frequency around the country have to power down to let that thing blast. The stations that are like 5,000 watts and less, they have to power down at night for the other 50,000 watt stations in other states that need to power through. That being said, you are going to pay accordingly. If money's not an issue, then we want to start with the better station and then buy what we can beneath that and stick with that format. So we're going deep into one category or format, as they call it, on radio, conservative talk. These are 50-plus consumers that are educated and have good income. Many of them are empty nested, people in their 60s and 70s. They may not be living in a 5,000 square foot house, but they have a roof, they have a foundation, they have air conditioning, they've got plumbing, they've got electric, they've got carpets that need to be cleaned, and they are home all day long. So your technicians can go meet with them, and they have a check coming in every month, an annuity check. It's a pension from the government. It's a Social Security check. It's their 401k. Maybe they have a reverse mortgage and they don't have a mortgage. They got plenty of money to get it fixed, where someone in their 30s and 40s, even though they're making $200,000 a year, they're up to their eyeballs in expenses, and they're not actually as good of a prospect.
So it's very interesting. When a client comes to you, do you try to, I guess if you had your way, how many hours, it sounds like you start off with 2 hours of really good quality content with them and then just kind of edit it and go from there. Is that kind of the strategy?
Yes, we can work with that for some time, but if we need to go back and do a third and fourth, then we can. Generally, when we start this, Brent, I've been doing this for so long, it generates phone calls immediately. As a matter of fact, if you don't get a phone call in a given week, you do not have to pay me. So wow. If you don't get a phone call, which will turn into an appointment, people are only supposed to call for an appointment. They're not calling for anything else. If the phone does not ring, which we track, then you don't have to pay me for my services. I will say the services for the radio station is another story. So there are two costs to this. The radio station gets paid regardless. It's the way it worked. They will never do that. I, though, for the creative part, okay, for the talent side. My job is to make your phone ring. I'm called the radio pitchman. My job, I'm a salesman. My job is to make your phone ring with appointments. If I can't do that in any given week, you do not have to pay for my services.
Man, that is great. So, I love this because, I think it's Marty Fort, who's written some of the Dan Kennedy's books with him, always says, buy direct response and get branding as a bonus, right?
Free. Branding free.
Branding free. And that is exactly what you're getting here. It's the whole Marshall McLuhan thing. The medium is the message, right? Just as long as you're on the medium, that's so much of the messages that you're on there. You try to also get like infomercials. A big part of infomercials are testimonials and things like that. Do you try to get testimonials from people that you blend into the show as well?
Yes, and it's a beautiful thing when you can get a homeowner to. Are you talking about a homeowner testimonial for the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you can get a homeowner to talk about your client that you're pitching every week on the radio, it's great. And here's the beautiful thing. A lot of people will say, well, how do you get a customer from a plumber or a roofer to talk to you on the phone? Because if you think about it, where are you going to get that information? So the plumber could, look up who has used them before at any point in time, whether it was from radio or not, and say, okay, hey, Jim, why don't you call Mr. and Mrs. Smith? They used us 6 months ago. What I like even better is because we track the phone numbers, we know who called that plumber from our show. They already know me. They listen to me on the radio. I've got their number.
Great.
So when
That's
I
really
call,
good.
I'm calling as a radio personality, not the ones they paid. They're not my customer. They're my listener. So then I can talk to them and say, hey, how, candidly, of course it's not live at this point, it's just being recorded over the phone. Hey, candidly, Mr. Smith, how was your experience with XYZ HVAC company? And then they say, oh, they were great. Or if they weren't, well, we don't air that. And then we can also edit that testimonial and then place it within the show. So the entire show is recorded. It's not live. So picture this, Brent. Let's say I'm talking to you and you're the HVAC guy. And I say, hey, I've got Brent here, the HVAC guy, and he does a great job. And as a matter of fact, in a few moments, we're going to go out to the phones and talk to Mr. Smith. And then I stop talking. And we leave a little bit of a break. And then you and I go back to what we were talking about before. In post-production, we go back and we go to that phone call as if it was live. And then so I go into the studio and say, okay, Mr. Smith, how are you? And then we talk through that conversation he and I had, which may have been a 10-minute conversation, but only a 60-second, 75-second conversation cut up. And so now the listener hears what you call their neighbor, if you will, another customer on the show saying how great it is. So once again, going back to the infomercial, they talk about the product, they talk about the warranty, they talk about the 4 easy payments, and they talk about how happy Mr. and Mrs. Smith were with the blender.
Yeah, that's so huge. So are there people that you've I'm sure as you got into this, you've become a bit of a student of direct response advertising and marketing in general. Are there people that you've read or studied that have had a big influence on you?
So Ron Popeil, oh my gosh.
Right, Ronco, right?
Getting Ron's name out. He is the leader, was the leader, is no longer with us,
right.
of this type of pitch. He is known as a pitchman. If you go to Google and type in, television, pitchman, he's going to show up. So is Billy Mays from OxyClean.
Yeah.
And his partner, forget his first name, Sullivan, who sells these mops and so forth. It's an art. It's not a regular sales person. You're literally pitching old-fashioned style. So if you go to a county fair or to a home and garden show, you'll see people pitching things like a broom, a brush, pots and pans, and they'll cook up all the vegetables, and there'll be steam coming out, and they'll say, "Hey, you want to taste this?" And look at this double cooker boiler thing, frying pans. You get the Cutco knife guys out there cutting, a piece of leather or a piece of steel with, a blade from, Cutco knives that's guaranteed for life. If you break it, they'll send you a new one.
Right.
And they're all pitching. Literally, it's different than sales. So there are some big influences there, and I've studied them. I've read books. I've watched their pitches on video. I've actually purchased a DVD movie of these pitchmen.
Really? What is it? Is it an underground thing, or I mean, what's the movie?
No, I Googled it or looked it up on Amazon and ordered this thing.
Nice. Okay.
It's instead of buying a book, it's a DVD where it shows a lot of Ron's products that he had developed over the decades and pitched, and you can see some of these grainy videos. Same thing with Billy Mays, who also has passed away, and he also had a reality show.
Oh, I didn't know
he
that.
did. So you can go to YouTube and look that up and see some of these infomercials that he did. And I'm not near as good as they are. But honestly, I don't have to be, because there aren't really many people who do what I do, which blows my mind. It's a huge opportunity for people listening who want to do something new. Go out there, find some clients, get on the radio and learn how to pitch, because it's wide open.
And that is such the format serves two purposes, right? I mean, it makes customers ready to buy. I mean, they get on the phone, the person on the phone is not doing any selling, right? But it also kind of takes the pressure off you, because the format is so good. If you just follow the steps, if you just kind of, like you said, you have a formula by now. If you just follow the formula, you're going to rock it. And I actually, I was one of the I wasn't Cutco, but I was one of the knife guys that you would see in Sam's Club. I would do the pitch that would do that. And our presentation was written by a guy who was a hypnotist. Was written by, there's NLP stuff in there, and it was it was a grind of a job. But the funnest part was seeing somebody's demeanor completely change from standoffish, "Why am I wasting my time standing here?" to give me the deluxe set, and it happens. It's not you. It's just once you get a good formula, I mean, all you got to do is stay all the way and let it do its work, which now kind of a benefit, I would think, from people, an additional benefit from people working with you. I mean, A, this is content that you can repurpose multiple places, right? Mm-hmm. And B, I assume most people don't really come to you knowing what their USP is, knowing what separates them from the rest of the competition, or having a good offer. And I'm sure that you kind of have had to dig in and help people figure those things out. What does that process look like for you?
You are so spot on, Brent. So here's what happens. It happens all the time. "Hey, Jim, I hear that you're a radio guy." Now, when people say that, it usually means, I know radio exists. I don't know much about it. I do a lot of digital. That's probably what they're thinking. Right. And so I was told to call you because someone said that you can help me get more business through radio. So what I do is I explain to them how the process works, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And I explain who the demographic is and so forth. I ask more about their business, but I can tell you almost immediately, because I only work with home service, I can tell you the best way to approach it with HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roofing, whatever it is. And I'll ask them, as an HVAC company, do you also do any plumbing? "Yeah, we're in the plumbing business too." "Do you sell water softeners?" "Yeah, we do some." I said, "Well, that's what we're going to pitch." "What do you mean?" "We want to sell HVAC systems." I tell them we can't sell a $30,000 HVAC system over the radio. But we can't. I mean, we could try, but you're not going to get a whole lot of calls and appointments. Why don't we start with getting your foot in the door with a free water test? We will sell your water softener, and I'll ask them, is it fair that you have a water softener you can sell for $3,900? "Yeah, we do have a base model." "Great. Can you give $200 off or $300 off?" Yeah. Can you get free salt for a year? Yeah. And you can do a free water test. Yeah, we'll still make some money. I say you'll make more money because you'll upsell to a better water softener once your good sales guy gets out there. So there's some criteria. You must answer your phone as a home service professional from the radio, and you must have killer salespeople. If you don't, you're wasting your money and my time. Because when they go in as an HVAC company with that free water test and that offer, the homeowner who's heard it has qualified themselves, Brent. They know that they can afford that $3,000 system. They're excited about getting free salt for a year. They're excited about finding out whether their water is good or not from the water test. So the homeowner's pre-qualifying themselves. So when the phone rings, you don't have to start asking a whole lot of questions about, can you afford it? We may have talked about this before, but a friend of mine wrote a book called When Can You Do It? And When Can You Do It was written by Tom Decker, and he owns an insulation and solar attic fan company. We tripled his business in 1 year. 1 year with doing direct response radio. And When Can You Do It? The title is not by accident. That title was created because when he went to the house after we pitched on the radio, the only question the homeowner had was, when can you do it? They knew how much the insulation was. They knew the warranty. They knew also that there was a 30% federal income tax rebate on solar, on the solar attic fan. We educated them throughout the hour program, week after week. So when Tom and his team went out to the house for that appointment, there was no like, well, tell me more about it. They've been listening for weeks sometimes before they called. They even knew Tom. If Tom couldn't go out, they would ask the technician, where's Tom? Because they get to know, like, and trust you. They want to hire from Tom. When you buy OxyClean, you might be thinking of Billy Mays. Right? It's this impression you get. And so that's why he called it When Can You Do It? He asked me to write the foreword, which I did. And that's the magic. So I want everyone to think, when can you do it? Can you answer everything in your advertising, marketing, and promotional materials? And it's hard to do that with a print ad. It's hard to do that with a 30-second TV commercial. It's hard to do it on digital. You can do it long-form digital with a podcast or something, but the thing is people don't have the attention span to watch a podcast. No offense to what you and I do on podcasts, but they don't have the attention span like they do radio. And it's simply because of this. And it's beautiful. People are in their car. When you're in your car, you can only do a couple of things because you're driving. You can certainly listen to the radio, but you're not on your iPad or your phone. You're not. You are driving that car, and you're listening to the radio like you have been for 105 years because radio has been around for that long, about as long as cars have. And that's the beautiful thing, because when you're driving from your house to the store, from church to home, you're not on your iPad watching a podcast. You might listen to a podcast, but the thing about radio, though, Brent, is you bump into it. You bump into our show because you're loyal to the station because you like to listen to conservative talk. Maybe it's Glenn Beck. You love Glenn Beck. You're listening to him all week. Now on the weekend, coming home from church, you turn on your favorite radio station, and who do you hear? Us. And you're like, hey, this is informational. I may have hard water. Let me listen. Next thing you know, you're like, I qualify. I'm going to be one of the 10 callers. And you call from your freaking car because you got a mobile phone now, which is great. I mean, everything lines up, right? You've got undivided attention in the car with radio, and you can communicate from your car versus years ago, you would have had to park your car, go to a payphone, or go home and call. Now they can call right from their car. And that's why it works so well.
That is great. So I guess if you're watching your back end there where the calls come through with the numbers, I'm sure you can see all that. Weekends are probably the times when calls are flying through the most, I'm guessing, correct?
Yes. So here's what I tell my clients. I say you must answer the phone on the weekends, and you must answer it during that hour. So if they're on Saturdays from 1 to 2 p.m., and it's always going to be the same time every week, for a minimum of 13 weeks. That's generally what radio stations want. They want a 3-month contract. or commitment, which is 13 weeks. And so if it's Saturday from 1 to 2, the phone will start ringing about 10 past the hour.
Right.
And will generally stop ringing at 5 past the top of the hour. And it won't ring anymore. Do you know why it won't ring anymore, Brent, for that hour? Do you know why? After that hour?
Because you're off the air?
Because there's no offers left. Because we tell them. You see, you have
nice.
to put it out there, and you have to stick to it. So, for instance, in the beginning of your show, I say, hey, Jim Klauck, a.k.a. Check a Pro Joe here. Welcome to the program. And I've got Brent here, and we're going to talk about water softeners. And don't tune out, because if you're one of the 10 lucky callers today, you're going to get this, 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 and this. And we go into the whole pitch. We go into the education. And so by the end of the program, we say, only one more left. We can't say, oh, we're just joking. You can call anytime you want.
Right.
You lose credibility. You lose a sense of urgency. You lose the value of it. That doesn't mean people won't write your phone number down or plug it into their phone and call later for your services. That doesn't mean they won't try to call later. But 95% of the phone calls are going to come in during that hour. But these are not leads. I'll say it again. These are not leads. These are qualified appointments. The homeowner knows they can afford your product and or services. They are calling you for an appointment to come out. Answer your phone and make them happy and sell them. It is given to you on a silver platter.
Is there a sweet spot that when you're talking to somebody, my guy's coming on, he's selling $100 product. I mean, is there something that you look for, like, hey, that might be tough, or I mean, I guess not a fidget spinner or something, but it's got to be a substantial ticket, correct?
Exactly. So it has to be substantial enough where it makes sense for the contractor, the home service company, but it can't be too much where the homeowner says, I'm not in the market for 2 new air conditioning units that are going to cost me 30 grand. So what you want to do is really what you want in general is you want to gain market share. You want to get a new customer. The cost of getting a new customer today in home service is anywhere between $100 and $1,000. It's crazy what it can cost. Some will spend up to $500 to get a new customer because the lifetime value of that customer could be thousands. So in HVAC, for instance,
right.
You can't go in at 25, 30,000 on the air, on the radio to try to sell them that. So you go in for something else. For instance, we'll do a tune-up, ordinarily $149 for $39.95 today, only 10 callers. So what are you doing? You are building trust because you're the guy on the radio, which means you're special. Not everyone can get on the radio. Anyone can get on digital. Not everyone's on the radio, especially in the minds of someone who's 50 plus. That is a sacred place. They know, like, and trust you. You're giving them a deal of over $100 off, $110 off this. The value is in their mind of, wow, I'm saving over $100. Technician's going to come out to my house. They're going to look at everything. And guess what? They just might find a bigger problem. But even if they don't, you've now gotten that customer for not $1,000, not $500, but for less. So let me throw out some numbers of what it might cost to do this on the radio. I would say the average hour for radio is $500. That's what it costs to advertise, $500. That doesn't include our fee from Check-A-Pro, okay? But for under $1,000 all in for the radio and for our services, okay? Well, let's say it's $1,000. So let's say the radio is a little more, and the radio generally costs more than what we charge. So, okay. So let's say it's $1,000, but you're getting, let's say, 10 qualified appointments. Every one of them is going to buy something from you, at least that $39.95 tune-up. So you are able to get 10 new customers for $1,000. That's only $100. HVAC companies will kill for that.
Yeah, that's great.
That's huge.
That's such a qualified lead. I mean, like you said, an appointment. It's the self-qualified lead versus just, the tire kicker, the guy that runs across you on Facebook. I mean, the Facebook leads, I'm not saying they're bad, but it's like, man, those are, you got to churn through a lot of them really to get somebody, as opposed to this, it's the exact opposite. Do you see, is it one of those things where, and I guess there's a lot of different variables, but assume that you have 8 Sundays, they're all the same. The weather's the same. It's not a holiday season. The Super Bowl's not on, something like that. A stretch of 8 Sundays. And you run a program for an HVAC guy or whatever. Is there a curve to that? Is there a, hey, we get more here? Or I mean, do you see growth, or is it just kind of a steady progression throughout the thing? And does there come a point where it's like, okay, we need to run a new one now?
Yeah, great question. So I will throw a little bit of weather in there, just so everyone understands that generally if it's raining out or snowing, depending upon what part of the country you're in, calls are less. People are on the road less if it's inclement weather.
Right.
And they're also apparently focusing more. So we learned that just by observing the phone calls. We're like, wait a second, why is the phone not ringing as much this week than last week? What's the difference? It's raining. That's it. Also, over time, short-term over time, within the first 3-4 months, you're going to get more and more calls as people begin to know, like, and trust you and then make that phone call. So there's always the early adopters who will call immediately, the first time they hear it, first time it was aired. Then there's some people who hold out. They're like, yeah, let's see if this company's around in 2 months. You know what I mean? Let's see if they're still talking about it.
Right.
And then they go home and talk to their wife saying, you know what, we should probably get our water checked. She says, why? Well, I've been listening to this show off and on for the past couple of months, and they make some good points. And so it ticks up. But after a while, there's like a saturation point with that same show, to your point. So it may start to decline a bit. So we can do a couple of things. We can refresh the show, or we can add another station or another time on that station, because you get different listeners on Sunday than Saturday.
Right.
I tell people to add another hour on that station or a like station if they can. And they say, well, why wouldn't I just kill this one and do that? I said, as long as it's profitable, why would you get rid of it? You shouldn't get rid of any source of business that's profitable. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to just cut it. So if it's making good profit, even though you think by switching the hour you can do a little bit better over time, it still might take a couple months to get back up to where the other one's starting to decline a bit, right? So I would say, with the money you've been making, put some of it back into another hour, either on that station on a different day and time or a like station in the market.
Oh, that's very interesting. Have you tried this business? What's the biggest maybe anomaly business you've done? I mean, does this work? I mean, I guess it would work with wellness. I guess it would work with vitamins. I guess it would work with cosmetic dentistry, everything like that. What personally have you done, and what are some businesses that you haven't done this with yet that you're like, man, I really would like to get a crack at those? I think we could do well. I'm
sticking with home service. It's my niche. I've been working with home service professionals, with contractors for 20 years, started in 2005.
Wow. Right.
I have sold pillows. I have sold hearing aids. A few other products. And you could go wide with it. You could sell almost anything up to a certain price point. What's nice about home service is just about everybody who listens to conservative talk radio has a house. Think about this.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree that most people between 50 and 70 own a home? Yeah. Not just live in one, but own it.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And where do most people spend most of their money? Probably on their home.
Yeah, good chunk of it, right?
So there's just a lot of opportunity for a business like mine. I mean, just think about how many contractors there are in any given city that we could help across the country. Yeah. And we haven't even scratched the surface. Now, a lot of people say, well, how are you going to scale this business? Why haven't you scaled it? And it comes down to, well, because I am the artist right now, and I like doing it. So I do a lot of things that people say you shouldn't do, which is wear a lot of hats. But sometimes you do hire people that are very good at what they do and wear a lot of hats. So, for instance, if you were in trouble with the law and you want to have the best defense attorney, are you going to hire the best firm or the best attorney? So you're going to hire the McDonald's, or are you going to hire the guy, Johnny Cochran, that's going to get you off?
Right.
Or Shapiro, or whomever that person was to help get OJ off. So think about it. Are you going to hire any boy band, or do you want Elton John? Elton John couldn't have stepped away from being the primary guy. Right. It doesn't work that way. Mick Jagger and his team, they didn't bring in a young boy band to replace him and say, yeah, this is the Rolling Stones 2.0. So anyway, so that's it. So, I'm tweaking what I'm doing, and I can only help a certain set, but really sticking with home service, that's my space. I understand it well. I am that consumer. I'm 58 years old. I am the HVAC, roofer, plumber, foundation repair company's target audience. I'm the avatar. So I understand the homeowner side. I have a 2-car garage, actually a 3-car garage with 2 doors, right? I've got a swimming pool. I've got, so many bathrooms. I've got a dog, a wife, and kids. That's what they're looking for in someone in their 50s. And then they're looking for the people in their 60s and 70s. Now, a lot of home service contractors who are new to the business don't know who their avatar is. They don't know who their customer is.
Right.
They'll say,
That's
everyone who owns a house is my customer.
Everyone,
and I say, that's not a good answer. They're like, why not? I say, wouldn't you like to kind of narrow it down a bit? It's better. You don't want people who are young, who don't have money to get things fixed, or who may be able to do it themselves.
Right.
People who are 70 may not change their own air filters. Someone who's 25, if they own a house, will. Why not go for the one who needs your help, who probably has more discretionary income, who's around all day long? They're home watching Jeopardy.
Right. Well, if you had to choose one product to sell to these people, what's your favorite to sell?
Oh my gosh, I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun selling attic insulation and solar attic fans, and I'll tell you why. Because now it's not a sexy home improvement, but the ROI is huge on the return. It's very inexpensive to put more blown-in insulation into the attic. You can also pitch it on the radio per square foot. So, for instance, we would talk about a square foot, not a cube, a square foot 6 inches deep. Ordinarily, the price is $1.25. Today, it's only $1. So if you have a 1,200 square foot attic, which people can do. So for instance, Brent, if you have a 2,400 square foot house and it's 2 stories, your attic's probably 1,200 square feet. Just probably is, because each floor is 1,200 square feet and your attic's 1,200 square feet. So it's 1,200 square feet for $1 a square foot. It's $1,200. On top of that, you should get a solar attic fan, and you only need one 30-watt fan for that attic. Ordinarily, that's $1,200, but the federal income tax rebate is 30% on solar, so you're going to save this much. So we do all this math, and so, Brent, you know what it's going to cost. It's really easy with a defined product like that. Also, water softener. So to answer your question, anything that improves health, wellness, comfort, and wealth. So, for instance, you're saving 30% on a federal income, tax rebate on the solar. You're saving money on energy bills. Your HVAC isn't working as hard because you have more insulation, right? And the heat's being pulled out in the summertime with the solar attic fan. So you're saving money. It adds value. So when you sell the house, the ROI is over 100%. If you look it up, you can look it up online. Adding insulation gives you over 100% ROI, and it's not that expensive. It doesn't cost that much. It's only $1,200 to add 6 inches. $1,200.
Wow.
Solar attic fan's only $1,000 or $1,200 before the 30% off. And that's not a refund. It is, off your income. It is a rebate. 30% includes also not just the product, but the installation of it. And so I like that. Same with water softeners. You're saving money on your dishwasher because it's going to last longer. Your water heaters are going to last longer because you don't have hard water anymore. It's going to be healthier for your skin. Your shower doors aren't going to be as chalky and rough because the hard water is not going to be on there anymore. And when you sell the house, you have a water system and your house can be worth more. Those are fun to sell because people are saving money and they're more comfortable in their home and they might be healthier. And we can price it over the air for everybody. It's the same price for everybody. Versus other things are a little harder. So my answer is insulation, solar attic fans, and water softeners. Those are the big ones.
Man, that's great. I think what you do is genius. I think, like you said, it is probably the most, underutilized method of advertising. And I think it's just great. It is so awesome right now. It's like, I don't know. It's the value I think that you get for this. I just from my experience in the home services business is incredibly huge. So this is really cool. People want to get in touch with you. We will of course put a link in the show notes but how do they get in touch with you to figure this out?
So you can email me, Jim, Jim, at the Radio Pitchman. You can go to Google and type in the Radio Pitchman, and we show up at the top, and you can message me from there. You can also message me on Facebook. I spend a lot of time there. You can just type in Jim Klauck, Klauck, and you can message me from there. It's kind of easy. And the phone number at the office is 281-398-PROS or 281-398-7767.
Love it. Dude, thank you very much for coming on. This has been fun.
Brent, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome, sir. That's another edition of Persuading for Profits, everybody. We'll see you next time.